All right, guys, this is film class. This is week 8, part 1, Vertigo. Some people consider Vertigo to be the greatest movie of all time ever made, period. I am one of those people. Um, and I know I say that about all the movies that I teach because most of the movies you see this semester would be listed among my favorite movies of all time for sure. This is the 14 movies you see in this class are definitely all in my top 20. But Vertigo really is like the greatest film ever made. Um, uh, let's start with. I'm just going to jump in and start talking about some things. So make sure again watch Vertigo, go rent it, and check it out, and then come back and watch this lecture video. Um, the one crucial thing to understand about Vertigo is when it first came out, people fucking hated it. The reason is it will take it's not going to lead, it's not immediately obvious why people didn't like it, but one of the reasons why people hated it is because of Jimmy Stewart. Um, Jimmy Stewart was very, very famous for several movies, but two of the most famous movies Jimmy Stewart was famous for was It's a Wonderful Life, which is one of the most wonderful Christmas movies ever made. Maybe it's the greatest Christmas movie ever made. And he was also in Rear Window, which you guys saw. The thing about Jimmy Stewart is he's a sweetheart. We like Jimmy Stewart. He's very likable. He's likable in It's a Wonderful Life. He's likable in Rear Window. He's kind of like a wholesome. He has a kind of Midwestern vibe to him, and we like. He's a sweetheart. We like him, you know. Oh, Jimmy Stewart. He was also in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, which is about a politician he's a good man, and he becomes a politician. He's surrounded by all these corrupt people, and he has to, save America. It's a great movie. Um, anyway, he wins. He's in movies where he wins and where we like him. And Vertigo is fucking dark. So one of the first things to understand about Vertigo is putting Jimmy Stewart in this very fucked up role, this very dark, dark role. Um, People were so upset by it. But again, that's casting. When you think one of the things you can think about with casting when you're writing your papers is sometimes you have a person who's in a movie, like Tom Cruise is in an action movie, then they put him in another action movie. No surprise there. But sometimes if someone is well known for being a comedian and then you put them in a serious role, then suddenly the audience says, "Oh, this is interesting. This is something strange is happening." So, like Adam Sandler, for example, makes these dumb fuck movies, but he was in this one very, very good movie called Punch Drunk Love. And one of the things that made Punch Drunk Love really interesting was that Adam Sandler, who you think about as being a dopey comedian, was in this like very fancy movie. It was this beautiful kind of it's interesting. It's an interesting movie. I quite like it, but it has some problems. It's very male. Anyway, it seems to be endorsing men in a way that I'm not super happy with. It's a romantic comedy, and he wins the girl at the end, but I totally get what he gets out of it. Less clear what she gets out of it. Anyway, that's a key thing for Vertigo. So I don't know. Let's just get started on Vertigo. I got the hang of this. Let's just go. Um, the first thing you see in Vertigo, and again, I always tell you in your papers, it's always good to talk about what are the first things you see and what are the last things that you see. What is the first thing the director show the audience? What's the last thing the director shows the audience? So, one of the first things you see in Vertigo are a close up of a woman's face. Right, you have her eyes, you have her lips, and this kind of the bottom half of her face. Um, it's close up. It's like you're investigating. You would almost the only person whose face you would be that close to was probably somebody that you were having sex with, because you're really just like up in there looking. You don't really do this to people very much. So it's an intense level of like staring at someone's lips in this very close way. Um, the I'm going to say something slightly crazy here, but it's worth pointing out that at no point do we see all of her. We only see her in bits and pieces. It's like this is what fetishes are, and this is going to come up in this film. But when someone has someone has like a foot fetish, they're like really into feet, like sexually. Um, they tend to focus on one body part, and they almost don't care about the rest of the person. They're really interested in that one body part, which for them, that part of the thing is everything. And so there's lesser and greater degrees of this, right? But people often focus on one particular part of the body. It's very common when you're talking about being sexually attracted to people to sort of laser focus on individual aspects of them. But do you see there's something kind of dehumanizing about that? Because you're taking a person and you're reducing them to a body part that you're sort of focusing all of your attention on. That kind of toxic male gaze, gaze, looking the way sort of men look at women and sort of treat them like some parts of them they're interested in and other parts they are not. For example, just men treating women like they're just sex objects, right, is to sort of ignore the brain and pay attention only to the vagina. And it's a very kind of dehumanizing way to treat people. This is a fascinating way to start out Vertigo, because one of the things that Vertigo is about toxic masculinity, and this sort of ill treatment of women, is what Vertigo is about, and so it's captured in kind of some of these opening moments. And of course, the title itself comes out of her eyeball, like these vertigo, and you have these sort of swirls and spirals, so that she's abstracted into these sort of strange shapes. Cool. Okay, I think this is going pretty good. Notice, by the way, I'm sure you guys also thought this was funny, but Jimmy Stewart's injured again. This is the second Hitchcock movie where Jimmy Stewart is dealing with an injury. It is also the second movie where he's dealing with an injury that is a blow to his masculinity, right? Remember in Rear Window, he's shattered his pelvis and his leg, and he can't go out and do adventure photography, which is his cool job, his manly job. But here, he's a cop, and he has injured himself. He's gotten injured, and he also has a fear of heights. And the idea is that he feels less than masculine, right? Because he's supposed to be this big sort of cop hero guy, but he's lost his masculinity. And the way that you know this is that he's injured his ribs, and so he has to wear a corset, which is usually, and of course his friend Midge designs women's clothing for a living, which is interesting, and we'll come back to that. But she designs women's clothing, so she knows that a corset is usually a piece of woman's clothing. He has to wear it to kind of keep all of his sort of, bones in place, but it's something women wear frequently to sort of give them a sort of sexy figure or whatever. But one of the first things we learn is that he's sort of forced to wear women's clothing, which is an important detail in a movie where, just like in Rear Window, his masculinity is in question. And in particular, his sort of, I'm a cop, I'm a detective, I'm going to, chase people over rooftops and catch the bad guys. He can't do that anymore. He has an injury that is both physical, but also, he got the cane at the beginning of the movie, but it's also psychological, which is that because of the horrible thing that he witnessed, because of the cop falling to his death, he now has vertigo, which is a fear of heights. And if he gets too high, he feels dizzy. So his masculinity has been attacked on both physical and a mental. He has physical and mental injuries that make him feel less than manly. And a lot of this is emphasized by him being in sort of Midge's design studio, where she's surrounded by women's clothing, and he's like looking at the bra she's designing, and so she's kind of he's kind of finding out, he's kind of surrounded by sort of women's things to emphasize it tells you it's emphasizing the position he's in. Okay, cool. His relationship with Midge is also fascinating. A couple of quick details it's just worth holding on to. Number one, he calls her like mother, because she's taking care of him when he's injured. So she is clearly in love with him, but he treats her like a mom who takes care of him. And of course, the more she takes care of him to try to show, she takes care of him to show him that she loves him. But I think he interprets it as sort of motherly. They used to be engaged. She broke off the engagement. We don't get any more information than that, but boy, is that a story I'd like to know a little bit more about. But clearly, they were engaged. Then she broke off the engagement. We do not know why, but she clearly regrets it. And he is keeping her kind of away from him. Calling her mother is a way to make sure that they will not get back together again. But clearly she wishes, as the movie goes on, that she could. But again, this kind of, you see it just like in Rear Window, there's a fucked up sexual relationship, right? These two beautiful people should be in love, but he's put her in a mother position, and she doesn't like that, and he's injured just like at the start of Rear Window. So and also notice, by the way, she's asked her doctor about his condition. Right? That's the level of which she's trying to help, right? She actually went to her own doctor to kind of help him. So again, Midge and I love Midge. I understand why the movie sort of paints her as being ridiculous, but I think she's fantastic. I would marry her in a hot fucking second. She's adorable. But Midge is, she's very sweet, and she wants to take care of him, going so far as to ask her own doctor sort of what she could do to sort of help. Okay, cool. We'll pick it up in the next video.